business?
Yeah, I think for me, the whole point of mindset, we can't live in a constantly happy state, and we shouldn't expect to live in a constantly happy state. That's not to say we can't be grateful, but most people, I think, have got a bit of a wrong idea about what having a winning team is. They think it's people who are always high-fiving each other and, constantly live in Gillette adverts. And actually, that's not, we're not Americans. We don't need to be fed that. So I want to get to the nuts and bolts of what a real winning mindset's about, including how you cope with setbacks. So that's what I'd like to do in this session.
Floor's yours, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gary. The bullet went past my left ear and it smashed the plate glass window behind me. And, that's when I realised I was in the wrong job. Seriously. Now, you would have thought I realised I was in the wrong job the first time I got stabbed. What I actually realised the first time is if the material's tight enough and the blade is sharp enough, it goes through the material and your skin and you don't even notice it. And it's only 45 minutes later when you collapse from loss of blood that you realise that anything's been a problem. Now, you'd have thought I'd have realised I was in the wrong job the second time I got stabbed. No one said you have to be clever to make money. But what I figured out the second time I got stabbed was if you're fighting 4 people in front of you and someone runs up behind you, smashes a bottle and rams it up your backside, you hardly notice what's going on behind you because you're so focused on the fight in front of you. And again, it was a few minutes before I started to get lightheaded and collapsed. Now, we've met. Obviously, I've chatted with a few of you, but I don't feel I know you well enough to show you both scars, so should we go with the arm? But the fact of the matter is, it was when the bullet went past my left ear and it smashed a massive plate glass window behind me, that's when I knew I was in the wrong job. And something had to change. See, what I experienced in that moment was this. I experienced something called a crucible moment. Now, crucible moments are moments where the reality of your life, the reality of your existence, the reality of your situation crashes through whatever lies and fabrication you've built up in your head to maintain your sanity bubble. By the time you're in your early 20s, you've probably had 3 or 4 crucible moments. By the time you're in your 40s, you've probably had about 12, 15 crucible moments. I just want you all to pause for a moment and think about a crucible moment that may have happened in your life. Something where reality just came crashing through whatever bubble you'd built around yourself that meant you were refusing to see the reality of the situation. See, because a lot of people will tell you that having a positive mental attitude is exactly about building that bubble. The problem is, when you have a crucible moment, it destroys it. So actually, the reality of having a positive mindset is expecting to have those reality checks. Expecting something to come along to force you to reevaluate your current plan. Now, I know I don't look like the fittest and healthiest of guys, but actually, I've got a resting heart rate of between 48 and 52. In fact, it's so low, my GP thought I was in early stage heart failure and sent me for a load of tests. But it just turns out, as well as being a big bloke, I'm a part owner of a fitness business. I love to eat well and I exercise. Or I did until 7 months ago. Longer than that now, 9 months ago, Christmas Eve it was, I had an old back injury that reoccurred. I ended up in spasm. Insurance company told me it was a prior problem. I couldn't book a private surgeon because of everything that was going on with COVID. So I ended up having to wait until July of this year to have 3 of my discs operated on. But we had plans in place as a team for what would happen if I became incapacitated, because I've lived with a back problem for 12 years. So I didn't try through positive mental attitude to not have a back problem. What we did was we planned. What was the word that Gary was saying before? What was the word that Claire was saying before? Planned. We planned for what would happen if this happened. And if you're going to build a winning team, part of the mindset you've got to adopt is they're not going to panic when something goes wrong. They're not going to fall around and run around like headless chickens when something happens out of the unexpected. If you look at sports teams that do this, I'm not a massive sports expert, but one of the things you'll notice that's a massive difference in some of our professional players now is they're expecting to be challenged. They're expecting to have to work the full match. They're expecting the early goal or the early try. And they're expecting that they might have to work to come back from that. They're not expecting that everything's going to go according to plan. Because do you know, I've seen some amazing plans, and they're all on whiteboards, and they never go wrong on the whiteboard. So actually, the first thing about having a winning mindset is expect those challenges to occur. Have a plan for when they occur. Expect the best, plan for the worst. But as a leader, what happens if you have a crucible moment in your business and you now need to take the team with you? Have you ever had that? Have you ever had it where you just see the vision, you know what has to happen, but now you've got to get a load of other people convinced that it's the right thing to do? Anyone ever had that situation? It can be interesting. Feel a bit like John the Baptist in the wilderness at times. You know, so it's important you understand what's going on psychologically when you have a crucible moment, because often a crucible moment will be followed by something needs to change. Then you've got to take everyone else on that journey with you. So it's really important that you understand what that is. So we've used this word change, and I'll come back to that in a little while. For me, change is the most awful word in the English language, because it's one of these words that doesn't really mean what you say. So if you look at change in the English dictionary, there are two definitions for it. One is small coins. Yeah. Two is to alter the state of. That's all it says in the English dictionary. Change means to alter the state of. Now, if I walked in here and said, oh, do you know, last quarter, did okay, sales were reasonable, but hey, everyone, things have got to change. What would you automatically assume? You would, wouldn't you? It's one of those words that just go, oh no. It's got such fear attached to it. And actually, there's a guy called Patrick Lencioni, management guru from America, and he came out with an amazing quote. He said, people do not fear change. People fear the loss that comes with change. And that's true. Most people immediately start thinking, if things are changing, what am I going to lose? So we'll come back to change as a word. But there is a model called the phases of change. And I want to share that with you. This is effectively what happens when you have that crucible moment and all of a sudden reality bounces into your life. So the first stages are denial. Okay, and then we get angry, and then we start to do some bargaining. Now, this was actually originally created by a cancer specialist called Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She wrote a book called On Death and Dying. Really positive title, that. I bet that sold well. But actually, she was a cancer specialist in a palliative care ward. So palliative care wards are places people go to die. And what she noticed was that patients went through these stages. So the first one, denial. No, you got the test wrong. Need to do the tests again. Then angry. Why me? Why is it me? I go to church every week. Why me? And then bargaining. Well, if I only smoke 10 cigarettes a day and you take out one lung, can I survive? Denial, anger, bargaining. We then hit what's known as the trough of depression. How many people are starting to recognise something that happened around about 18 months ago when there were some announcements about COVID? Yeah? How many people found solace in trashy daytime TV and red wine?
Not the daytime TV.
Guilty. Well, it was very odd, actually, because I started watching Porn Stars, which is an American Las Vegas-based TV program about, and really it's the way educations do educational TV. They talk about stuff from history and then they offer a value for it in the pawn shop. It's the way you tie money to it, Americans want to watch it, it's a good way of educating them about their own history. Okay, so that's what Porn Stars is. But I noticed after about 3 or 4 weeks, I'd moved over from Porn Stars to hardcore porn. And hardcore porn is these really gritty guys in Philadelphia who are really at the hard end of the porn market, you know, and like they'll get people with scratch CD players and wanting $500 for it. And they'll go, I'll give you 5, you know, and you better be back next week. And actually I noticed I'd been going around the house going, oh, yeah, that French dresser, we'd probably get $250 for that if I needed to. And that's Harold Pinter's typewriter, that's got to be worth 25 grand, if any, you know. And I was actually going around the house going, well, what are we going to flog? What are we going to flog to make ends meet? Ridiculous. Ridiculous. My kids have got trust funds that most people would die for. Literally. But I was there, flogging off the furniture, in depression. Oh, God, the world's changed, it's ended. What's going to happen? So we're not immune to this, and that's the point. No one is immune to feeling this stuff. But eventually you get through that and you start to see some light. Honestly, you do. Yay. And then we start to come to accept the situation as it is and we start to deal with it. And then once we've accepted it, we make progress. Now, interestingly, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross noticed that around cancer patients who are dying. And even people who are dying can find progress. So if they can, what right have you got not to? Genuine question. Genuine question. What she also noticed, though, was they went through it and their family would often be lagging behind. So they'd be over here at progress and their family would still be angry or bargaining or... And that's what's going to happen in your business. You will have a crucible moment, you'll realise something, people will go on innocently while you go through this phase and try and hide it from them. Then you'll get to this phase, and you'll go, yeah, we've got the answer. And they're all going, hang on, you just want to turn our world upside down. Now they're here. Having a winning mindset understands that we're all at different stages on the journey, whatever the journey is. Having a winning mindset says, how can I get you through this? Because I've been through it recently. How can I help? What can I do to answer your questions? What can I do to help you with some of that denial and the anger and the bargaining? It's not to stand over here and go, bloody hell, just catch me up. I'm so sick of my team, they're always behind me. Help them catch up. You went through this, bring them through it too. I worked for, under non-disclosure, I can't say who it was, but I was asked to look at the logistics of a business that is quite a famous business, make fantastic yellow hoovers. And the man himself was in the room because they had a problem with some of their international distribution and they felt that the culture in that wasn't the same as the culture in the core business. And they were proposing some significant changes. They tried to implement some significant changes and they were failing, they were stalling. So I got asked to have a look at it. And I sort of said, you do realise that everyone in the UK office has been through this, now you're opening it out to the international subsidiaries. It's nothing to do with the fact that Spaniards are lazy. It's nothing to do with it. Seriously, it's nothing to do with the fact that the guys in the Far East, you know, just want to talk about their family. It's not that. They're just at a different place on this curve. And the man himself, he literally, and this is why I have challenges with engineers sometimes, he went, well, I'm glad you described that. We just need to build a bridge from there to there now. Brilliant. Thanks for the answer. I went, no, no, James, no, we don't. What we need to do is recognise that people are going to be through this. What we also need to recognise is, if you're going to put a change through the business, is that really just one thing? Or is it going to be lots of different things? So guess what? If I'm looking at what said change is, I might go, well, I'm happy about that, but I'm really angry about that bit. Oh, that bit, I don't know how we're going to do that. So the danger with a model like this is you see it as 2D. And you see it as a series of gates that you've got to get people through. But actually, we're a bit more complex than that, aren't we? So that's the second thing about your team and your mindset, is recognizing we are not Disney, right? We're not heroes and villains. We have this 50 shades of feeling around anything we're trying to implement. And we need to be cognizant of that if we're to have a winning mindset. Because part of it, we have to ask ourselves the question, which bits of this am I not happy with? Which bits of this are causing me a problem? If you are going to do, I will move on from the change word in a minute, but if you are going to do change, recognise you can do it well and you can do it badly as well. So you'll probably see, if you go to enough of these sorts of talks, you'll see the change curve trotted out probably one every 2 or 3 talks, because it's a popular model. What actually happened was a leading management consultant for one of the big practices, his sister had terminal cancer. And he was there looking after, they had no parents, he was there looking after, and one of the staff gave him the book on death and dying. He read it, and he worked for McKinsey, and he went, actually, this is what happens with our customers when we go in and reorganise their business for them. So he brought it from the world of cancer into the world of management consulting. And since then, it's been the standard change model for anyone who's trying to do any sort of change. And that's great, but me being me, I sort of went, but it's not really quite like that, is it? So what is it really like? What's it like when it's done well, and what's it like when it's done badly? Well, this is what it's like when it's done badly, and what it's like when it's done well. When it's done badly, you get denial, anger, and bargaining. When it's done well, you get denial, anger, and bargaining. Because these are human emotions people go through. When it's done badly, you have the trough of depression. When it's done well, you have the trough of depression. When it's done badly, you get a slow climb out of acceptance and progress. When it's done well, acceptance and progress come much more quickly. What's the difference between a badly run change and a well-run change? Any guesses? And a bit louder for the rest of the room, please. Communication. 7 times. Every message around the change, you must communicate 7 times, preferably on 3 channels. Whether that's face-to-face meetings, audio calls, presentations, paperwork, whatever you can, pick at least 3 channels, same message 7 times. Then it will start to get through to people that this is going to happen. See, it's not about the rah-rah at the beginning of the change. It's about whether or not people understand what they're going to have to do to get through it. That's a winning mindset. We had a young lady who won some tennis recently in America. Anyone know her name? Emma Raducanu. Yeah, well, I knew we had a tennis favourite in the audience, but Emma Raducanu. So do you think she only focused on the end game? Or do you think she was going to have to map her way through that tournament? It's the same with any change that you're going to put into place. You can't just focus on the happy, I'm going to lift the trophy. Because it is a game of snakes and ladders we're in, running a business. And having a winning mindset is not being prepared to throw everything away when we land on a snake. It's knowing that there's another ladder just round the corner. And then it's being prepared to climb it. So please don't think, and I really hope you weren't expecting some American rah-rah for this session, because we're British. And we don't do it that way. Communication is the key to this. And you can feel it. How many of you have survived a corporate life? Yeah, show of hands. How many of you in those corporate lives were constantly in cycles of change that never had an end? Yeah, and that's because they're badly managed changes. What happens is they say, we're going to have to make a change. Then what happens is everyone's so slow at delivering it that the benefit is realised so late, it was actually too late for the market. So what happens about here? Oh, well, we need to, market's moved on. We need to make a change. So you end up in this constantly unfinished cycle. What happens here? We need to make a change. We understand this is going to happen. We'll help people to understand why we need to do it. We understand this is going to happen. We won't try and whip them into operation while they're coming to terms. But once they come to terms with it, we go, this gets delivered. This gets delivered. One of the things that we do when we implement, or one of the things that I suggest when we take over a business, if we do a merger and acquisition, one of the things that we'll do is we'll walk people through what they're going to feel. And we'll tell them we're not going to touch you for 3 months while you feel it. But at around about 3 months, we're going to start discussions, and between month 3 and month 6, you will be part of our business. And we'll actually have some of our people around helping you get through this. And the people we send in are people we've had from other acquisitions. Does that make sense? And of course, what happens if we get some progress here and we get a win? What do you think this team want to do?
Grow.
They want to go back to the beginning and do it again. Hang on, this was good. We had a good outcome. I wouldn't have picked that one. Oh, I'm in denial about that. I thought that was okay. So we accept it's still going to happen. Even if we've had a win, we're still going to go back to the start. But what happens is the difference for a high-performing team with the right mindset is they know this is coming, they know it's short and sharp, they know that there's a benefit, and they know that they're going to move on to the next one. In this, you're in hell. You are just in constant hell. And there is actually, I don't know if you believe me, but you can walk into a business, and more difficult now, admittedly, with COVID and people being at home. But I used to walk into a business and know straight away whether or not they'd be good or bad at projects. Because they'd have a hum. There's a hum to a business that's working well. There is a buzz to a business that's working well. You know the businesses that are good at this because you can feel it in the energy. You can feel it in the business. Businesses that are bad at this are vacuums. They're vacuous when you walk in. They really are. You can feel it. And this isn't just psychology. This is actually neuroscience and physiology as well. What happens when you end up in this? How many of you play video games, just out of interest? Any video gamers in the room? Oh, just me then. Wow. 7 kids will do that to you. One way or another. In video games, what happens is you get into the game, you start, you have a rush of adrenaline while you're learning what's going on. You know, things are happening all over the place. You're trying to figure out how to master the controls, whether it's a driving game or a shooting game, doesn't matter. But you've got an adrenaline rush. Then what happens is you reach the limit of your capability and you can't get to the end of the game. That's meant to happen because you want to be challenged. But what happens is you ultimately reach a level of your capability that means you're not going to get any further. Then what happens is you want to still get further because you want to complete the game, but your brain actually knows you're probably not going to. So at that point, adrenaline is a very, very expensive thing for your body to produce. You know, adrenaline is the thing that will make you lift up a car if a child is trapped underneath it. Adrenaline is the thing that meant I didn't know I'd been stabbed. You know, adrenaline is the thing that will make you jump onto a 20-foot high branch if you've got a lion chasing you. So you're in this situation where you should be experiencing adrenaline, but the body goes, well, actually, I already know what's going to happen here. So I'm not going to let you have adrenaline because it's very expensive. I'll give you this other thing that's a bit of a cheap rip-off of adrenaline called cortisol. So I'll give you some cortisol instead because it's similar, does a similar job, keeps you awake, keeps you alert. You probably want more sugar as a result. But I'll swap, I'm just a little bit of a trick it does to you. It swaps adrenaline for cortisol. So you end up with this depressed cycle of people trying to do change. You get this right, even though they go through these phases, there's still enough adrenaline coming in to make it work. And when you go back and it's a new challenge, the brain goes, oh, new challenge, you need more adrenaline. Not going to give you cortisol, going to give you adrenaline, because you need it. So this is, at a neuroscientific level, this is how change works, badly or well. And it's actually got a buzz. That word, that feeling, that place has got a buzz. How many of you like roller coasters? Right, how many of you hate, loathe, and detest roller coasters? Right, you are just as important to me in this demonstration as the other people are, okay? So if you love roller coasters, who knows about that? Tick, 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 tick. You get to the top, and they always do what?
Stop.
Stop. And what happens to your body? And then they let you go. And what happens? And the best demonstration goes to, brilliant, yeah, that's exactly what happens. Now, the people who hate roller coasters who are standing at the bottom, you hear that, don't you? But you don't run around trying to say there's a fire. You don't run around going, who's killing the baby? Because it's a very special type of scream, that scream. It is, and you recognise it. As the person stood at the bottom, you go, oh, right, they've gone over the edge. Because what you've just heard is the sound of people who are fright-sighted. They have that perfect balance of fear and excitement. That perfect balance of frightened and excited that makes them fright-sighted. Due out in April 2022, there is a book called Fright-Sighted from yourself. So it's been trademarked, so we can now use it as the title for the book. That's what happens in a business that is good at change. That's what happens in a business where people have got the right mindset. They are fright-sighted. You get them too scared, they run around like headless chickens. You get them too excited, they're like giddy kippers. Neither of which are good for delivery. The right mindset, if you want to achieve significant growth in your business, is to get people into a state of fright-sightement about what's going on. The way you do that is you run the changes well. You over-communicate, you set clear deadlines on what's going to happen and how it's going to happen. You over-communicate it, you deliver it. That's what gets people into a state of fright-sightement. You're going to bring a new product to the market, get people fright-sighted about it. I can't remember if it was Nicky Hackerman or one of the racing drivers. Someone said, what's it like when you're going around that corner? Do you ever feel out of control? And he said, if I didn't feel slightly out of control, I wouldn't be doing my job properly. Because my job is to push that machine to its limits. And that's where you've got to be if you want a fast growth business with people who aren't going to burn out. You get people into the cortisol space, they burn out. You keep people in the adrenaline space, they go and win championships. That's having the right mindset. It's not about high fives. It's about people being excited at the setback. Christ, we weren't expecting that. How are we going to solve that one then? Instead of, oh God, weren't expecting, oh, better pack up. Go home. And that's the difference. That's the difference between cortisol, adrenaline. How much adrenaline do you have in work on a daily basis, apart from the security people?
Not a lot more. Mostly just cortisol because it's associated with stress.
Yeah, yeah. So you've got to figure out how you block cortisol in your business. That's one of your key, whether or not that's, one of the reasons I'm part of a fitness business is because we actually go to corporates and we deliver fitness sessions for the team. That's a good way of getting people out of the office, doing something together, just burst of adrenaline. One of the reasons we do, we own a training business that does Lego to teach project management is because people are expecting 200 slides over 2 days. They get to build a town using project management techniques. We are constantly looking at how we introduce adrenaline into businesses, because that's what you need to do. So you need to think about how you're going to bring adrenaline into your business. I haven't got a clicker at the moment. That's interesting. I haven't got a blanket solution for all of you. And for some of you, anything that was suggested would be just wrong. But actually, for all of you, there are ways you can bring adrenaline into your business. Can I have a little bit of help, please? Because I'm not skilled at putting the back on. Any questions? Well, we can do part of the Q&A now if you want, if anyone's got any questions. Yeah. Yep.
To bring it more into the customer relationship.
Yep.
And so when you've got something brand new to present or sort of something which isn't in their horizon yet maybe, then first of all they say they don't need it. Then they might
Denial.
say, oh, I can do it myself.
Yep. Bargaining.
Then they say, well then how much is it?
And then they get angry at the price.
Then they sit on it. And then they sit on it.
Yeah. Depression. Yeah.
And then they come round and say, well, how much to do it for me?
Yeah. Acceptance.
And then they go, okay, then let's go.
Progress.
And then they say, afterwards, it's the best thing we ever did.
There you go. True acceptance. So how many of you appreciate that that's what's going on through a client's mind when you're in your sales process with them? Because that's what's going on. You're forcing them.
Shorten my cycle.
There you go, yeah. There you go, because that will be the process they're going through in the sales cycle. Genuinely will.
That's why I have to communicate with them more and more.
More and more. That's why you communicate more in a sales environment. It's also the reason why, as you said, why don't you share that with them and go, we understand, we're going to ask you to question some fundamentals here, but let's show you how we're going to help you get through that. Yeah, and let's introduce you to other customers who've been through it. Gosh, didn't know we were doing a sales seminar, but let's go for it. Why not? Let's go where it goes. But from a mindset perspective, that's what happens in a sales situation. So, the worst sales people in the world are the ones who go, oh, I can sell anything to anyone. Because actually, they've just got a false reality about what the reality of trying to sell to people is. And that's what a winning mindset is. A winning mindset is knowing we're going to go through a minefield. Bringing adrenaline into the business is saying, do you know what? If we're going to go through it, let's dance. Let's not tiptoe, let's dance through it. That's how you bring adrenaline to it. So I did say I'd deal with change and that nasty word. Hey, we didn't put the battery in upside down, that's good. So this is HMS Belfast, and HMS Belfast was commissioned in 1939, and it went out of service in the late 1960s. Okay? But it pretty much still looked the same. Yeah? Now, interestingly, HMS Belfast, 39 to 1960, I think it was 1968, so nearly 30 years of service. It had 4 different jobs. In the Royal Navy, it did 4 different things, which meant it had to be kitted out and refurbished in 4 different ways over that 30-year period. But it still looked the same. So when is change not change? Change is not change when it's an update. Now imagine you've got a group of people who've been working hard in your business, they've delivered over COVID, they've done all that. You as the managing director, as a director, you've had a moment of realization, a crucible moment, you realize you want to go in a different direction. You want to open up a product, you want to open up a market, you want to do something different. You can either go to those people who've been working their socks off, keeping the business going, I've had this realization and we need to change things. What's going to happen? What have we done wrong? First thing is, who's going to lose their job? What have I done wrong? Or you can go to them and go, do you know what? You have been working so hard and you've kept the business going. And what you've actually done is you've worked better than I expected and you've given me headspace to think about what we need to do post-pandemic. And actually, I think there are some updates we can do that will help us. Which one would you want to be part of?
Yeah, an update. Yeah.
Yes?
Is that what you talked about earlier with being very deliberate with your language?
Yes.
Because you could easily accidentally use the word change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Changing it, and like people have connotations.
Very, very negative connotations around change. Very negative. Update. Who doesn't want an update? Who doesn't want to be kept up to date? How many times do you have people who say, no, don't keep me up to date? Yeah, but the thing about Windows is you always know you're going to end up with a better crap version after an update. But how many people do say, no, don't keep me up to date? Think about the language. So we often take people through updates. As a reward for everything you've done, we've identified these great new markets. We're going to do an update to the business so we can have fun in those markets too. Not we have to change things around here. We had a great conversation over lunch, didn't we? Where you could be talking to a business that you're buying about, you guys are working really hard, but we could update you. Would that make them more prone to want to talk to you about being bought? I think possibly yes. So, we want to update you. We've gone into acquisitions that way. We think you're a brilliant company, but we think with our capability to give you some updates, you'd be even better. Does that make sense? Oh, wrong one. Went too far. You want to go backwards? Oh, it will. There we go. Can I just squash one thing? Anyone who lives under the myth that we're not involved in an IT business of some sort, I think the last 18 months have proven to us that we pretty much have to be. And if IT is not your bag, get someone in the team who it is and pay them serious attention. Pay them serious attention. Because whether we want to be or not, we're all in IT now. And if it's not your personal strength, bring someone into the team and give them the respect that they deserve, because they will be a growth mechanism, and what they bring to your business will be a growth mechanism for the next decade. It doesn't help if you bring them in and then you just ignore them. And you don't talk to them seriously about what can be spent. Last section, last 5 minutes. I've got a question for you. You remember I said that you can either be disrupting your market or you can be disrupted? My granddad used to come out with all sorts of phrases, and as a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, they didn't sort of mean a lot to me. He had all sorts of weird phrases, and as a kid, they didn't mean anything. But as I got older, they started to make more sense. And one of my granddad's questions is, in life, son, you've got to decide if you're the pinball or the flipper. Yeah, and actually, I used to think, well, I want to be the pinball. I want to be all over the place. But then you very quickly realise the pinball has got no self-control. The flipper has got 1 foot grounded and knows what's happening, knows my job is to bat off anything that comes near me. That's what I do. It has a purpose. It knows what its purpose is. And it does it very effectively. Depending on who's been, yeah. Yeah. And a term that we've heard a lot over the last number of months, over the last 18 months, has been pivoting. How many of you have heard about, we're pivoting? We're going to pivot. Does anyone know where the term actually comes from, pivoting? But before that, do we know where it came from? It's actually basketball. In basketball, once you take the ball, you're allowed one step and then you must plant a foot. You can move around with that foot, but it must stay planted. You can pivot to find a new direction of play, but that foot must stay planted. You can't run with the ball unless you're bouncing it. If you caught with two hands, you've got 1 foot to land and then you are stuck. And you have to pivot. So from that specific purpose, in a business context, what does pivoting mean? I want to talk to you about a company that started way back. It was started by Henry Knock in 1772. And he had a brother who had an English cutlass, English Navy cutlass, was fighting a Frenchman. The steel of the cutlass snapped, and the Frenchman drove his blade through his arm, took his arm clean off. So Henry Knock got into the sword-making business, and he was determined to make British steel cutlasses the best swords in the world, because he recognised that a good blade can mean life and death to a man. 1772, I think it was. That company is still in business today. Any ideas what it is? Wilkinson sword. So the question is, have they stayed true to their original purpose? Yeah. Yeah. Has that allowed them to innovate? Okay, let's move on. So this was turn of the 1870s. Gentleman he used to sell pots and pans, went door to door, recognised that lots of women were being kept by their husband, didn't find it nice, didn't find it a nice proposition. So he started creating books that they could share and sell between each other, and they'd get a commission for the sale of the books. So he used to produce these penny dreadful books. When he was out selling pots and pans, he'd give a housewife 20 of them, say they sell for 25 cents each, I want 10 cents back, you keep 15 cents. Off you go. Because he believed that women shouldn't have to be reliant on their husbands for income. That company is still in business today. Any guesses who they are? Not quite, no. Avon. And today they're known as the company for women. Last one. Fujihiro Yamauchi created a playing card company called the Hanafuda Playing Card Company because he believed that people love to play whenever they get the opportunity. He started a playing card company the year the Japanese government banned gambling. But what he did to get round it, and they actually banned playing cards, so what he did to get round it was he created artwork on them and made them collectible. That company is still in business today. Any guesses? Yamauchi, the Hanafuda Playing Card Company? Because they pivoted. They have pivoted. They haven't jumped from one market to another. They have pivoted. They've constantly reacted to new markets and they've constantly developed new markets. Do you think they had a mindset that said, oh no, we're stuck in playing cards? I just want to cover one last thing because it's pertinent to what was discussed earlier. So in the earlier session, I made a big thing about creating opportunity for your employees, and I felt I had to explain that I wasn't an apologist for giving employees a good experience, but that's because I operate what I call a 5.5R model. So you recruit honestly. If there are crap aspects to the job, say, this is a bit crap, you're going to have to work some weekends. Not, oh, well, occasionally there's weekend working. You know, Jemima, she's done 12 weekends out of 20. You're probably going to have to do the same. Be honest in your recruitment. Oh. So retain people by paying them fairly and with the right benefits. Make sure you review frequently with them and be honest in the review with them. You can't wait for a year and then go, I know your bonus is riding on this, but what are we doing wrong? And moves like putting in employee feedback solutions that allow them to feedback daily, weekly, monthly is exactly the right way to go. The annual review should not be a surprise to anybody. You should already know all of that because that's connectedness, using technology to be connected to your employee. Retrain. If you've got people working hard over here and you're moving into new markets, don't expect them to learn by osmosis. Invest in them. Retrain them where you need to, because you won't find that attitude. Again, it's hard. Retrain them. That costs money, but it's a damn sight cheaper than recruiting new people. And if you've done all that and they're still a tosser, let them go. And if they're a superstar and they're going to another bigger company and you haven't got the growth for them, let them go. And be happy about that, because I've had people we've had to let go in some of the growth businesses we've got because they've been absolute superstars. They've come back as clients 2 years later because they know that what they've got in their corporate world can't be delivered unless it's by a business like the one that we're in. So let them go willingly and send them along gladly and stay in touch with them. And the last thing is repeat the cycle for everybody in your business. That's the half R. Make sure you're repeating this cycle all the time with everybody, including you. When was the last time you put yourself on some serious retraining? Good. Well done and congratulations for it. Gary, I'm in danger of overrunning this by 5 minutes. Have I got 5? So the last component of a winning mindset is your vision. So here we've got Smudge and Cowboy. They're my 2 dogs. Cowboy's the big guy. He's an American Akita. That's why he's called Cowboy, because he's an American Akita. And Smudge is a mongrel that is half husky. We took them through Kennel Club training. Has anyone ever done bronze, silver, gold Kennel Club training at all? It's amazing stuff. You start off really crap, and then what happens is the instructor teaches you how to be a good owner. And the dog sort of follows your cues after that. It's really good. You know, so if you're a stressed owner, they become stressed. I've got this really barky dog. Well, because they're reacting to you. So part of the Kennel Club training at silver level is you have to get your dog ready to go through a gate. So you walk up with the dog, you get the dog to sit nicely, you open the gate, you walk through the gate, dog sits down, you close the gate, and then you can go off again. And at gold level, you do all that without a lead. So we'd been getting them through their Kennel Club training. Cowboy was at gold, Smudge was at silver. We're out for a walk in the countryside, both off lead because they've got good recall. So we're out for a walk in the countryside, and we come across, oh, it went too far. Oh, damn. Anyway, we came across this gate, and actually what had happened was both Smudge and Cowboy came and sat in front of it. Because we'd focused them that much on what happens when you get to a gate, they hadn't noticed the gap at the side. They literally went, gate, we go and sit. I know I am, thank you. But anyway, so what happens is they go and sit, and there's this path. And you know, like all good business gurus, I went, there's a business metaphor there. They'd got tunnel vision. We'd got them so focused on what a gate was, they'd forgotten to look around it. One of the keys to having a winning mindset is not getting tunnel vision. So if you've got tunnel vision, you're only going to focus on what's in front of you. When I was fighting those 4 guys, I had no peripheral vision at all. I was focused on them. If you've got funnel vision, you're constantly scanning the horizon, saying what's coming towards me that we can either dodge or incorporate. If you've got tunnel vision, you'll miss opportunities. And part of having a winning mindset is having a funnel vision, because then you'll see problems as they're coming, prepare for them, prepare the team for them, meet them head on. Funnel vision. Opportunity, we can head over in that direction. It's an opportunity. If you've got tunnel vision, you will miss out on that. And that's the last component of a winning mindset. So what are my closing thoughts on this? I think the key ones are, get your team ready to be fright-sighted. Get yourself into a place where you're fright-sighted about your business. Get yourself into a point where you're fright-sighted about the opportunities you're creating, because adrenaline beats cortisol every time. Yay. So expect and drive updates to your business. You know, think of your business as a mobile phone. You're going to have to put updates on it to keep it current. There are new apps you're going to bring into it, new things you're going to want to develop in your business, new apps that you're going to want to bring into it. Think of your business like a mobile phone. You're going to want to constantly keep it up to date, and the apps you've got on it today are not the apps you're going to have on it next year. And there will be some core apps that you always use, and that's the core purpose of your business. And then lastly, know your purpose personally and the purpose of the business, because that allows you to pivot. And it allows you to do it from a safe mental space of not being panicked. It allows you to do it from a space where you're making the most of an opportunity, not reacting to somebody else who's disrupting you. Questions? Couldn't do the dog thing and not have a dog question.
How do you avoid getting tunnel vision then? Is it things like spending time working on your business rather than running it?
Yep. So here's a couple of ways of avoiding tunnel vision. Go to 2 or 3 markets that you'll have nothing to do with, subscribe on Twitter to a couple of the businesses in those markets. And make sure you see those tweets, or subscribe on mailing lists to businesses that are in nothing to do with your market, and ask yourself, what's that showing me about what's happening in the world outside of my industry? So pick 2 or 3 industries that you might, like I've got an interest in cooking, so I'll often subscribe to things to do with cooking manufacturing, even though I've got nothing to do with cooking manufacturing, because I want to see how they're innovating. Watch TEDx talks. Give yourself, TEDx talks take about 10 minutes on average. Give yourself a target of, I'm going to watch 3 TEDx talks a week, just random ones that they give me, and see what comes across the desk. So basically, you've got to introduce an element of randomness that just keeps new ideas coming into you. And it can't be onerous, and it's got to be fun. That's how I avoid it.
Do you still have a mentor?
Yes. Yes, I do. I've got a mentor for my professional speaking business, and I've got a financial mentor, investment mentor. And that's the other thing. Don't think a mentor comes wrapped up as one package. Seek mentorship wherever you see it. And don't see one mentor as deficient if they can't give you everything, because mentors by their very nature have a specific skill set that they work to. Give yourself a board inside your head. And actually, if you can't get access to them at any time, after a while, just start asking yourself, what would they say to me? Because you start to get used to the advice they would give. So what would they say to me in this situation? But yeah, I've got a couple of mentors, absolutely.
I'm tempted to ask if you're happy with the financial mentor.
He's only tempted, he's not going to ask you.
But I like the fact you encourage people to pitch, mate, so fair enough. Anything else before I step aside?
Before we move on.
Before I get dragged off stage? Because this gives me adrenaline. You know, this gives me adrenaline. Mergers and acquisitions, I've done that many of them now, but this gives me adrenaline. Thank you for allowing me to have some adrenaline today.
Brilliant.
Thank you.